just getting off work, and today had me thinking and reflecting a lot on how my ICU interview went, because it's coming up on my, well, it's been over 3 months since I've interviewed for the position. However, I am almost to my, in like 1 week I'll be at my three-month anniversary of working at this facility, and I've got to say I have actually been really pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect it to be like a negative experience. Let me just say that. I did not. But sometimes you enter a situation kind of with like a rosier expectation of what it actually is, and you expect a certain level of excellence from the people, from the facility, and I feel like this facility is delivering. And one highlight, before I get into some of these questions, because many of you watching this, I recognize that you may want to see what questions I was asked during an interview, what you might want to prepare for, because these questions that I was asked, I actually did not expect to have these questions. And I've interviewed for ICU before, and you know, I've gone through these situations before, different types of jobs, and these are not the questions that were asked me at other interviews. So I want to highlight some of them, and I think you are really going to love it. But one thing that really stands out to me at this facility, and I appreciate this so much, it really is in alignment with who I am as a person, my own ethical standards, my own moral code of conduct. Oh my goodness. People are just walking in the middle of the road, and it's in the dark, right behind a semi-truck. It's like they don't care if they get hit or something, and then it's going to be probably me blamed. Gosh. Okay, back on topic. Sorry guys, I just wanted to make sure no one was pulling a fast one on me there. Nobody talks bad about each other behind their back at this facility. I don't even think I've heard one, I don't know if I've heard one thing of gossip. And I am so floored to even say that, because every single place I've worked, it's been like drama, talking, you know, you overhear people saying bad things about another employee, and that is unprofessional. It's not something that's actually allowed, but it's one of those things that also it's done all the time. And it's like a gray area that shouldn't be, but happens to be really toxic, and people end up really not caring because they want to entertain themselves, or they want to entertain others and make friends at the expense of saying something bad about someone else, which is totally wrong, and we shouldn't do that. Like, me being a Christian, I really strive to have Jesus at the heart of all the actions and interactions that I have with another person, and I'm never perfect, but that's something that is really on my heart, and I really try my diligence to never, you know, slide into those topics where I'm even listening to it, because this just is a red flag to me. But because anyone who's saying something bad about someone else is going to say something bad about you if they want to. If the circumstance arises, you have to just understand that those people are going to be willing to talk bad about you as well. And I don't care how close or buddy somebody seems. If somebody's willing to say, like, talk bad about people behind your back, just know that that's really who they are. They're showing you their true character. So I learned that lesson the hard way before, but it's fine, because sometimes you got to learn these lessons. So I went into my interview with a nurse manager, and they had another nursing supervisor join in on the interview. The nursing supervisor, who was like, they have like a charge nurse, nursing supervisor hybrid role, since we have like a smaller facility, and they invited the one that was on staff that day to join in the interview. And I thought that was kind of nice, because, you know, if the roles were reversed and I was the charge nurse and I wanted to help pick out the nursing staff that was going to be working with me, that would be really valuable to have somebody sit in that's actually going to be working with the individual being hired. So that was interesting. So we sat down. I was at the head of the table, and they sat one on either side of me, and I've got to say that was a little intimidating. I did feel a little bit intimidated by that, but everyone, they were very cordial. They were very, they were not intimidating people. They were very friendly, and I could tell it wasn't like one of those situations where I had to be like, so tightly wound. I could be myself a little bit, show who I was as a person, as an individual, and I think that's pretty important to kind of enter an interview in a relaxed way, just confident and relaxed, like no matter what, if you get the job, if you don't get the job, like that was the right outcome. And this is why I interview really well. If I end up making an interview, I usually get offered the position. And I think whenever I get a call for an interview, I know that they've really saw me as a strong candidate, and they don't want to waste their time either. So, they're pretty sure that I'd be a good fit. HR's probably talked to me on the phone already, and now it's just down to the manager and to, have a conversation and make sure that I don't trip off anything that would be a no-go, an immediate no-go. So they started asking me a little bit about my nursing experience, and I liked this question that they asked me. They said, what have you learned about making patients or keeping patients happy? And what I said in the interview was to act with integrity, basically. So if I say I'm going to do something for the patient, whether that's small or big, like, for example, something small could be like, I'm going to come back with a glass of ice for you. Or something big could be, I'm going to call your family member so they can come in for a conference with the doctor. Anything really that you tell the patient that you're going to do, you should follow through, so you can have that rapport and you can demonstrate that you're a trustworthy person. And that's what I said. And then they asked me next, what have you learned about keeping doctors happy? And I kind of said the same thing. I said, I've learned that to communicate well, you have to really be succinct and efficient in what you're saying, have it kind of planned out, but then also, like, if they ask you to do something, that you do it, that you carry it out, you close the loop, and you communicate well with them. And I also explained that I like to round with the physician if they're present on the unit. I don't like to avoid the physician because I want to hear what's happening as well. So if I have a question later, then I've had a chance to listen to what they had to say to the patient, and then I have a chance to ask my own questions as well, because it's much easier to do that face-to-face if you're able than to try to chase them down, call them, get a hold of them later, because a lot of times they won't answer and you'll have to leave a message, and just being real, sometimes they won't return your call and you have to keep trying again and again, and you just can't get through sometimes. It's just, obviously there's a chain of command in that circumstance. I don't want you guys to freak out, but sometimes a certain specific physician you try to get a hold of doesn't answer or doesn't get them. I don't know. It's easier to talk to them in person is what I was saying. And then, you guys, they asked me some clinical questions that I was like, good for them. Good for them for asking these clinical questions, because I have never in an interview been asked what I would do if a patient decompensated in this way, what I would do if a patient decompensated in that other way. And they basically gave me a scenario, like a case study, and then they said, what would you do? And I kind of got nervous. I was like, wow, like I have to like really get this, I have to like speak well, I have to like basically come up with exactly the right thing. And so obviously not exactly the right thing, but you do the best you can on the spot. So it's like an improvisation in a way, but it wasn't hard. But they asked me some questions about like ventilators and post MI, and I was like, wow, like these are skills that I still need to sharpen, and like I know what to do in terms of like resourcefulness, but like I need to sharpen these skills. And so I had this level of like awareness and like humility of like just being honest with my level of experience. And I knew that my weak point was going to be that my experience wasn't one full year of ICU. So they hired me, and I was like very, very happy to be to accept the position. I felt like it was a blessing. I felt like God opened a door for me, and I really feel that things happen at the right time. I think that God opens the right doors at the right time, and there's a reason why this happened now. And I'm walking through these lessons now and these open doors right now. What do you guys think about the timing of things? Do you feel like you can miss things that God opened the door for you, or do you feel like you can't miss God's will for you? You can't. Things always happen exactly how they're supposed to, or can you really mess it up? Because honestly, I have heard so many different things, and I believe that you can. My personal belief is you can miss the good, the best option, like the best God's will, for example. I believe that you can miss it because we're human beings. We are naturally gravitating towards fear and negativity. So if you're somebody who has trauma and things that you haven't resolved before, you can self-sabotage and miss out on things that you might experience a level up if you did. But sometimes God, I believe, this is what I believe, God will teach you lessons to grow you up. So when that opportunity comes back around, maybe he'll bring the opportunity back around because you truly are meant to walk in that area. Then now you are strengthened and you've learned and you've been around the block, so to speak. I wonder if that's where that came from. But now it's not like, it's kind of like when you're learning to ride a bike for the first time. Most people don't like ride the bike perfectly the first time. You don't get it perfect the first time, and that's why the training wheels are on, because you got to practice. And sometimes when the training wheels come off, you're like, okay, this is really scary, and sometimes you really flub it. So I wonder, I'm more inclined to believe that we can, even if God thinks that we are ready for an opportunity, we can mess it up by self-sabotage because of our emotional state around something. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Let me know in a comment. Yeah, I think that was by far the most challenging interview that I've ever been through. And usually they just ask you questions about like yourself, and they ask you why you want to work there. And I think they asked me that as well. But those were not the questions that I remember standing out. I don't remember those questions, but I think that they asked them. But I had my own questions to ask. That's also something that I found that works really well in interviews. I don't know if it ends up correlating with a higher callback rate or anything, but I've noticed that employers usually it's like their nonverbal communication reveals this. I don't know if this is true, if they would admit it or not, but I think that they like seeing if you come prepared with your own questions to ask about the way that the facility is, the workflow, and what you can expect, because I think they want to understand, they see it as like a green flag that you are also wanting the right fit of a position, and you don't want to just accept anything just because. So I asked some questions about if the nurses float, how it is, the dynamic, how many beds are in the unit, things like that. Nothing too serious, but just stuff that you want to know when you're a nurse, like, how much do you float? Do you float like every week? Because that would be a little bit, Imagine you transfer to ICU to learn ICU, and then you're just floating all the time to med surg or somewhere else. It's just kind of different. But you go where you're called. And thankfully, with the travel nursing experience that I've been able to have, I got to get a lot of experience being floated and having to be adaptable and just being that person that does what they're told and goes where they've been told to go. It's not fun, and sometimes you can have the worst time of your life. I'll tell you guys a story about my worst shift ever in nursing sometime soon. But I was literally scared that I was going to end up being summoned to a deposition or something, so I stayed super late to chart, and that was just a nightmare. Anyway, I'll tell you guys that story another time, but given that experience of that happened when I was floating, so that's why I said that. Me being able to have that background makes it easier to accept when I get a float when I show up to work, and I'm grateful for it. I don't like it. I don't like to float, but I'm really grateful that when I do get that, I understand what I'm in for. Like, I know that there's going to be a certain level of challenge. I'm not going to know where stuff is. I'm going to have to badger people for codes to doors, this and that and the other thing. I'm going to be slow, and it's going to be probably a headache, but that's all right. At this facility, I think I'll float to the point where I'll understand where things are, and then it won't be so bad. I've already floated 3 times in 3 months, so that is interesting, but I don't know. Sometimes that's kind of nice to let your brain work in different ways. I like to frame it as a positive because I don't like to naturally go down that road of like negative thinking. That's something I actively have to like go against to be able to like be good. But yeah, when the interview wrapped up, they looked at each other and they seemed like they were happy. And sometimes you wonder, like, was that look like a good look, or was that like a heck yes look, we want her on the team look, or was that like a definitely not? That was so funny. I was like, you know, they had probably like a nonverbal communication going based on how they operate together, and I was like, I hope this is a good nonverbal exchange. I really do, you know, because I was waiting and praying for that opportunity. So yeah, it was funny. I kind of at the end of the interview, you know, the position was for a certain number of days and a certain hours, and the manager was asking me about how that would work into my life, and when he said it, I responded so genuinely. I feel grateful. He said it would be perfect, you know, and because it would. The schedule that I have is great for me right now. So you guys, that's about it. I am going to get home soon, and I will see you in another video soon. I invite you to subscribe and join our family. Here we're talking about mental health, physical and spiritual health from a Christian perspective, and you guys are going to learn a lot here. You're going to get a lot of support here, and I even have a gut health course for you if you're needing to heal your digestive health and you're just struggling to find your answers. I can help you in an organized way. It's going to get you from point A to point B. You're going to start feeling better in less than 2 weeks. So you can find that in the description below, and I will see you in the next video.